Hey guys, today we're going to be discussing two of the most popular brands in the sports, fitness, and competitive fitness arena, and that is CrossFit and HYROX. So to start with, I think both of these two differing things are great. To be honest, anything that gets people moving, gets people exercising, gets people working towards being a more fit version of themselves, I'm 100% on board with. Now, to be honest, also, I'm a little biased as a CrossFit coach and someone who's done CrossFit for 15 years now. Inherently, I do have a slight bias towards the CrossFit methodology. Now, that being said, in the past, I have done races similar to like a HYROX, the closest thing being mud races. I was really into mud races, competitive mud racing, like Tough Mudder, Spartans, and then some of the smaller brands, mom and pop type brands, but really got into the mud racing arena and really enjoyed it. And to be honest, it helped a lot with my cardio and accuracy, things like that for CrossFit. But as of recently, there's been kind of this battle between CrossFit and HYROX, and a lot of people are unfamiliar with what exactly HYROX is, how it compares to CrossFit. Is one better? So today I want to discuss the difference, similarities and differences between HYROX and CrossFit. So CrossFit is defined as a training methodology. So the idea behind CrossFit is it was initially started as a fitness and wellness kind of lifestyle methodology that encompassed multiple aspects of health and fitness. It incorporated weightlifting, gymnastics, high intensity interval training, cardio to an extent, kind of longer duration. But on top of that, it was focused on diet. It was focused on nutrition. It was more of a wellness type approach versus being a competitive piece. The competitive side kind of evolved out of the basis, which was the training methodology and kind of the lifestyle methodology. And it became a very small piece that evolved into a bigger piece of what CrossFit is. And so initially, your goal with CrossFit was health, wellness, and lifestyle longevity. HYROX, however, is defined as a standardized fitness race. So it started as a competitive style of fitness. So from there, you've had gyms and programs and organizations that have evolved into training styles to get better at HYROX events, but they both started kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum. So CrossFit started as a training methodology that evolved into having competition and being able to competitively display what your fitness is capable of. HYROX started as a fitness competition that evolved backwards. I hate to say devolved, but evolved back to then building training styles that would get you better at the race. Now, as far as the things that are similar, both have that competitive side. HYROX is a standardized test. So every HYROX competition is the same. You're doing the same 8 movements with a 1,000 meter run between each one. And your goal essentially is to go faster. That's it. So if you compete at the HYROX in Atlanta or Paris or Sydney or Las Vegas, you're going to be doing the same exact thing. Your goal is just go faster. There are things that HYROX doesn't have, like barbells, kettlebells, things that you would typically see in a CrossFit gym, but there are things that are similar, like wall balls, rowing, lunging, doing the ski erg. But things that you won't see are things like your Olympic lifting. So for people that maybe have struggled with Olympic weightlifting or don't find a necessity for it, HYROX may be geared more towards what you're looking for. CrossFit is defined as unknown and unknowable. That's kind of the hallmark of CrossFit. It's multiple different styles with any combination of movements, intensities, durations, etc. So the goal is to avoid, for the most part, repetition. So where HYROX thrives in having repetition, CrossFit thrives in not being repetitive. And so a lot of question is, which one's for me? Which one should I do? To be honest, you don't have to pick one. I would say from experience, what I have seen is folks that train CrossFit are going to be able to perform better in HYROX than those that only do HYROX type training that try to go to CrossFit. So from a readiness standpoint, CrossFit will make you more rounded to be able to perform better at HYROX than HYROX would to make you perform at CrossFit. And it's because there's things that HYROX doesn't have that CrossFit does. There's been some athletes recently that have made this, I hate to say jump, but have gone from competitive CrossFit to competing in HYROX events, and they typically do fairly well. But on the flip side, I haven't seen a HYROX event yet where a high-level CrossFitter actually won. And that's where some of this debate has come in as to which is better, and you see these headlines of CrossFit Games athletes compete at HYROX, and the HYROXers end up winning, even though the CrossFit athletes do well. The people that train exclusively HYROX tend to win. And that makes sense. Somebody that does more HYROX style training where you are doing longer runs, you are doing more specialized to just those 8 movements, like you have the ability to adapt to that stimulus. But your CrossFitters are not doing poorly. And the style of training that they do has to have these other components that they have to be able to do on the CrossFit side that you don't have to necessarily do on the HYROX side. So where they're spending more time working on these things like barbell movements, varying intensities of sprint, mid-range, and longer range energy expense, the HYROXers have a smaller list of things that they have to excel at. And so when you're looking at time under tension and putting yourself into that stimulus enough to get better at it, when you have fewer things to get better at, you tend to be able to excel at those things a little bit faster. One interesting thing that I have seen recently is CrossFit gyms have become affiliates of HYROX, meaning that their gym offers training that is specific for HYROX style events. So there is a place for both within the same facility or the same training location. In my opinion, I think HYROX offers a unique style of competition that CrossFitters could do very well at and could use to test the fitness that they have worked on. It may not necessarily test all aspects of fitness, but any way that you can give yourself the option to put on display or to test what you have worked towards is fantastic, whether it is a CrossFit event or whether it is a HYROX event. When I was doing the mud races, I was using CrossFit as my main source of training, and then I would go on trails and work on trail runs outside of the gym to help fill the running gap between CrossFit and mud racing. To me, HYROX seems very similar to that. I've hosted HYROX style workouts at our gym on the weekends just for folks that wanted to get a feel for some of the differences. And the funny thing is, the major difference between the two, honestly, is the HYROX workouts seem to be a little bit longer. The events are on the longer side. I think the current world record is somewhere in the 45 to 50-minute range, somewhere around there. So even the best of the best are taking 45 minutes plus to complete one of these events. So if you're going to train for that, a lot of times you're going to have to incorporate some of these longer duration activities. Looking ahead to the future, I see CrossFit as a more long-standing trend than I do HYROX, and it's because the goal with CrossFit at the gym level is a lifestyle change. It's a methodology that's based on constantly improving, but focusing on nutrition, focusing on overall health and wellness, versus HYROX being based on a competitive side and having the same kind of repeat process over and over again. I honestly think people will find fun in HYROX, but I don't see it maintaining people's attention as long as CrossFit does. The goal of HYROX is to compete the HYROX race. That's the goal of their whole entity. Versus CrossFit is a training and lifestyle methodology. So this side of the spectrum is very endpoint. There's an ending that you want, and that's to compete this event faster, better, versus CrossFit with the foundation being my number one goal is overall health and wellness. But either way, whatever gets you moving and whatever gets you working towards a goal, I'm 100% on board with. My opinion though, CrossFit will outlive HYROX.